Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today.
Yes, welcome.
We're going to be exploring the world of childhood.
That's right.
And, you've given us quite the stack of material to dig through.
Yeah.
Academic papers on sociology and child psychology, some personal narratives, even a few studies on education.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I'm excited to dig in and see what we can uncover together.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we tend to think of childhood as this simple universal thing.
Right.
But the research you gave me suggests it's actually a lot more complex and varied than we might assume.
That's already making me rethink some assumptions.
Yeah.
So how does the research actually define child and childhood?
Well, it turns out there's no easy answer.
Okay.
We see legal definitions based on age. We see cultural definitions that vary wildly, and even historical perspectives that paint a completely different picture of what it means to be a child.
So it's not just about reaching a certain age and boom, you're magically an adult.
Not quite. No, one of the things that really jumped out at me was this idea of childhood as a social construct.
Okay.
So it's something created and shaped by adults and societal norms, not just a biological stage of life.
Okay, that's a bit mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of how that plays out in the real world?
Absolutely. Think about child labor laws.
Okay.
We have in place to protect kids, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, in many parts of the world, children are working to support their families out of necessity.
Right.
The research mentions a young boy named Dada Sahib in India
Okay.
who desperately wants to go to school, but he faces these immense social and economic barriers.
Wow.
And his story really highlights how that idealized version of childhood clashes with the lived experiences of many children.
Yeah, his story really makes you stop and think.
Yeah.
So if childhood is this constructed idea, does that mean it's just a way for adults to control younger generations?
That's a question that a lot of researchers are asking.
Yeah.
It's worth considering why we have such distinct boundaries between childhood and adulthood, and who benefits from those boundaries.
It's a pretty provocative thought.
Yeah.
It makes me want to examine my own assumptions about childhood even more closely.
I think that's the power of really diving into research like this.
Yeah.
It challenges our preconceived notions, and it opens up new ways of understanding the world around us.
All right, so we've established that childhood is more nuanced than we might think.
Definitely.
What about the actual process of growing up child development?
Well, the research points to development as a continuous process.
Okay.
It's this constant evolution across different areas: physical, cognitive, emotional, social, even moral development.
So it's not like those old school stage theories where you hit a certain age and bam, you've mastered a specific skill.
Exactly. It's much more fluid and dynamic than that.
Okay.
Think of it like a tree growing.
Okay.
It's constantly changing and adapting to its environment.
Uh-huh.
And just like with trees, every child's developmental journey is unique.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But there must be some common threads, right?
Sure.
What are some key things the research tells us about how kids develop?
One of the most important things that came up again and again was the crucial role of play.
Okay.
And not just any kind of play,
Right.
but imaginative play, where kids are using their creativity and problem-solving skills to create their own worlds.
I love that.
Yeah.
The research mentioned different types of play, but imaginative play always seemed the most magical to me.
Uh-huh.
You know those cardboard box spaceships and the stick turned magic wands, pure genius?
Right. And it turns out all that make-believe isn't just fun and games.
Oh.
The research suggests it's actually fundamental to healthy development.
So building that pillow fort is actually building essential skills.
Yes.
Tell me more. What kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, think about what's happening when a child is lost in their imaginary world.
Okay.
They're practicing language skills, they're negotiating social roles with their playmates, they're problem solving, and they're flexing their creative muscles.
Wow.
It's like a mental workout disguised as fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm a little worried now.
Okay.
The research also mentioned something called play deprivation, and it sounds pretty scary.
It is a growing concern.
Okay.
With busy schedules and the lure of screens, many kids today are getting less unstructured playtime than ever before.
Right.
And that can have some serious consequences.
Like what? Give me the worst case scenario.
Well, studies have linked play deprivation to a whole range of issues, from difficulties with emotional regulation and social skills to problems with attention focus and even creativity later in life.
Oh, wow.
It seems that when kids don't have enough time to just play, it can actually hinder their ability to learn and thrive.
That's definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're creating space for imaginative play in kids' lives. So what can we do?
It's as simple as giving kids the time and space to explore, to experiment. And just let their imaginations run wild. Put away the structured activities in the screen sometimes and let them build a fort, put on a play, or create a whole new world in the backyard.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what they come up with.
That's fantastic advice. I'm definitely going to rethink my approach to playtime with the kids in my life.
I think we all could.
Yeah.
It's easy to underestimate the power of play, but the research is clear. It's not just fun, it's fundamental.
Okay, so we've talked about how childhood is constructed.
Right.
And how play is vital for development.
Uh-huh.
What else does the research reveal about the forces that shape children's lives?
One area that really stood out is the powerful influence of gender and socialization.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The research suggests that much of what we consider boy or girl behavior is actually learned, not innate.
Wait, so you're saying those gender stereotypes we see all around us aren't based in biology?
Not entirely. Of course, there are biological differences between sexes. But the research shows that the way we raise boys and girls, the expectations we place on them, and the messages they receive from society all contribute to shaping their understanding of what it means to be male or female.
I can already think of a million examples of this from my own childhood.
Yeah.
The toys I was given, the way I was praised, even the careers that were considered appropriate for a girl.
Exactly. And the research suggests that these subtle yet pervasive influences can have long-lasting consequences.
Wow.
It's about understanding how gender socialization can limit children's choices, their opportunities, and even their sense of self.
So how do we break free from these limiting gender boxes?
Yeah.
The research must offer some guidance.
It does. And one key takeaway is the importance of challenging those assumptions, both in ourselves and in the world around us.
Okay.
We need to expose children to diverse role models, encourage them to pursue their interests regardless of gender stereotypes, and create environments where they feel free to express themselves authentically.
That's so important. I'm already thinking about how I can apply this in my own interactions with children.
I think we all have a role to play in creating a world where gender isn't a limiting factor,
Right.
but a source of strength and individuality.
Well said. Okay, so we've explored how childhood is a social construct, how play is vital for development, and how gender socialization shapes children's lives.
Right.
It seems like we're just scratching the surface here.
We are.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. The more we learn about childhood, the more we realize how complex and multifaceted it truly is.
This has already been so insightful.
Good.
And I can't wait to see what other fascinating discoveries we uncover as we continue our exploration.
Me too.
Stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. It's fascinating, how much we're learning about the forces that shape a child's world.
It is fascinating.
But I think it's time we shift gears a bit
Okay.
and delve into a question that's probably on your mind. How can we use all this knowledge to actually make a difference in the lives of children?
You read my mind.
Yeah.
We've been unpacking all these complex theories.
Right.
But I'm eager to get to the practical stuff. What can we as individuals and as a society do to create environments where kids can truly thrive?
Well, one area the research really dives into is the role of education in the classroom.
Okay.
It's not just about academics, it's about understanding the whole child, their social, their emotional, and their moral development too.
So teachers need to be more than just instructors. They need to be almost like child development detectives.
Exactly. The research emphasizes the importance of observation,
Okay.
really paying attention to how kids learn, how they interact, and what their individual needs might be.
So it's not just about test scores and grades.
Not at all. The research suggests that teachers should use a variety of tools to understand their students.
Okay.
Things like keeping anecdotal records, having one-on-one conversations, and even analyzing their written work
Yeah.
can reveal a lot about a child's inner world.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like piecing together a puzzle to get a full picture of each child.
Wow.
But with a classroom full of kids, how can teachers possibly find the time for all that individual attention?
It's definitely a challenge, but the research suggests that even small things,
Okay.
like taking a few minutes to chat with a child about their drawing or jotting down observations in a notebook,
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And when teachers have a deeper understanding of their students,
Right.
they can tailor their teaching methods and create a more supportive and engaging learning environment for everyone.
Okay. So understanding the individual child is key.
Yes.
But what about the broader classroom environment? What kind of atmosphere is most conducive to learning and development?
Well, one thing that comes up consistently in the research is the importance of creating an inclusive classroom,
Okay.
a space where every child feels safe, respected, and valued.
Inclusion sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make it happen in real classrooms?
It starts with recognizing and celebrating the diversity of our students. Every child comes to school with unique experiences, backgrounds, and learning styles.
Yeah.
We need to move away from that one-size-fits-all approach and embrace those differences.
So differentiating instruction, offering a variety of activities, maybe even adapting the curriculum to meet individual needs.
Exactly. And it's not just about academics.
Right.
It's about creating a classroom culture of respect, empathy, and understanding.
You mean a place where kids feel comfortable sharing their ideas, taking risks, and maybe even making mistakes without feeling judged?
Precisely. That's where social-emotional learning comes in.
I've heard a lot about social-emotional learning lately.
Yeah.
What does the research say about its importance in childhood?
Well, it's about helping kids develop those essential skills that allow them to navigate the world around them.
Okay.
Things like understanding and managing emotions, building healthy relationships, making responsible decisions, and showing empathy for others.
It sounds like we're talking about life skills as much as academic skills.
Exactly. And the research suggests that these skills are just as important for success in school and in life as reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Okay, so how do we actually teach social-emotional learning in the classroom? Is there a specific curriculum, a textbook?
It's not as simple as just adding a new subject to the timetable.
Okay.
Social-emotional learning is best integrated into everything we do in the classroom.
Right.
It's about modeling empathy and respect in our interactions with students, creating opportunities for collaboration and problem solving, and addressing bullying and conflict in a constructive way.
That makes sense. It's about creating a culture of kindness and understanding that permeates the entire classroom.
Exactly. And when we create that kind of environment, it not only benefits children's social and emotional development,
Right.
but it also creates a more positive and productive learning environment for everyone.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of observation,
Yes.
inclusion, and social-emotional learning. What other insights does the research offer about creating a supportive classroom?
Well, one area that stood out to me was the importance of understanding different parenting styles.
Okay.
And how they can influence a child's behavior in school.
Okay. That's interesting. So we're not just talking about what happens in the classroom,
Right.
but also how what happens at home can impact a child's learning.
Exactly. The research highlights 4 main parenting styles:
Okay.
authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and neglectful.
Okay.
And each one has a different impact on a child's social emotional development and their ability to thrive in a school setting.
Give me the rundown on these different styles. Which one is the magic bullet for raising well-adjusted kids?
Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet.
Okay.
But the research suggests that the authoritative parenting style,
Okay.
which combines warmth and support with clear expectations and boundaries,
Yeah.
tends to lead to the most positive outcomes for children.
Okay.
Kids raised with this style tend to be more self-reliant, responsible, and better able to regulate their emotions.
That makes sense. It's about finding that balance between being supportive and setting limits. But what about teachers? How can they apply this knowledge in the classroom?
Well, teachers can adopt some of those authoritative principles, even if they're not the child's parent.
Right.
It's about being clear and consistent with expectations, providing positive reinforcement, and creating a classroom environment that feels both structured and supportive.
So it's about building those strong, positive relationships with students.
Yes.
But also holding them accountable for their behavior and their learning.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where kids feel both supported and challenged.
Okay, so we've talked about parenting styles and their impact on the classroom.
Uh-huh.
What other factors do we need to consider when it comes to understanding the whole child?
Well, one area that's often overlooked is the role of moral development.
Okay.
How do kids develop a sense of right and wrong?
Right.
What influences their moral compass?
That's a big question.
It is.
I remember learning about Kohlberg's stages of moral development in college,
Yeah.
but it all seemed very theoretical. How does it actually play out in the lives of children?
Well, Kohlberg's theory suggests that children's moral reasoning progresses through a series of stages,
Okay.
from a focus on avoiding punishment to a more sophisticated understanding of universal ethical principles.
Right.
But what's fascinating is that the research shows that children's moral development is influenced by a variety of factors,
Okay.
including their cognitive abilities, their social experiences, and even the cultural norms they're exposed to.
So it's not just about memorizing a set of rules?
Not at all. It's about helping kids develop a deep understanding of why certain actions are right or wrong and how their choices impact others.
Right.
And this is where teachers can play a crucial role.
So do we need to give kids lectures on ethics?
It's less about lecturing and more about creating opportunities for kids to grapple with moral dilemmas,
Okay.
to consider different perspectives, and to reflect on their own values and beliefs.
Yeah. So things like classroom discussions about real-world issues, role-playing different scenarios, or even just having open and honest conversations about ethical challenges?
Exactly. When we create a space where kids feel comfortable talking about these things,
Yeah.
it helps them develop a stronger moral compass and become more thoughtful and responsible members of society.
That's fantastic advice. It makes me realize that moral development isn't just some abstract concept. It's something we can actively foster in the classroom.
Absolutely. And when we do, it not only benefits the individual child, but it also creates a more just and compassionate world for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of understanding a child's social, emotional, and moral development. What other insights does the research offer about creating a supportive and effective learning environment?
Well, one area that I found particularly fascinating was the discussion of different learning styles.
Okay.
And the need for differentiated instruction.
Right. We've all heard about visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners.
Yes.
But does the research actually support those categories?
Right.
And how can teachers practically apply those concepts in a busy classroom?
Well, the research on learning styles is complex and somewhat debated.
Okay.
While there's no definitive evidence to support those rigid categories, there's certainly a growing recognition that children learn in different ways, and that teachers need to be flexible and adaptable in their approach.
So instead of trying to pigeonhole kids into specific learning styles,
Right.
It's more about recognizing that everyone has their own unique strengths and preferences.
Exactly. And it's about providing a variety of learning experiences that cater to those different strengths and preferences.
Okay.
Some kids might thrive on hands-on activities, while others prefer to listen to lectures or read independently.
So offering a menu of options, letting kids choose how they want to approach a task, maybe even allowing them to demonstrate their learning in different ways.
Exactly. And when we do that, we're not just catering to different learning styles.
Yeah.
We're also fostering a sense of autonomy and agency in our students.
That's a great point. When kids feel like they have some control over their learning, they're more likely to be engaged and motivated.
Absolutely. And when kids are engaged and motivated, learning becomes less of a chore and more of a joyful exploration.
Okay, so we've talked about learning styles and differentiated instruction.
Yes.
What other insights does the research offer about how children learn?
One area that I found particularly compelling was the discussion of cognitive development and the work of Jean Piaget.
Ah, Piaget. Those stages of cognitive development are like a classic in child psychology.
They are.
But how can teachers actually apply his theories in the classroom? It all seems a bit abstract.
Well, Piaget's work highlights the importance of understanding how children's thinking abilities develop over time.
Okay.
He proposed that children go through a series of stages from sensorimotor,
Okay.
where they learn through their senses and actions,
Right.
to pre-operational,
Okay.
characterized by symbolic thinking and egocentrism, to concrete operational, where they can reason logically about concrete objects and events,
Okay.
and finally to formal operational,
Okay.
where they can engage in abstract reasoning and hypothetical thinking.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
So how does knowing this help teachers create more effective learning experiences?
Well, by understanding these stages, teachers can tailor their instruction to meet the cognitive needs of their students.
Okay.
For example, when working with younger children in the pre-operational stage, it's important to use concrete objects and hands-on activities to help them understand concepts. As children move into the concrete operational stage, they're ready for more complex tasks that involve logic and problem solving.
Right.
And finally, as they reach the formal operational stage, they can engage in abstract discussions and hypothetical reasoning.
So it's about matching the teaching methods and activities to the developmental level of the child.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that children learn best when they're actively engaged in the learning process, not just passively absorbing information.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Piaget wasn't the only theorist who had something to say about cognitive development, right? What about Vygotsky and his socio-cultural theory?
Vygotsky's work is incredibly relevant to education as well.
Okay.
He emphasized the importance of social interactions and cultural context in shaping children's cognitive development.
Yeah.
He introduced the concept of the zone of proximal development,
Okay.
which refers to the gap between what a child can do independently and what they can achieve with the help of a more knowledgeable other.
So it's about providing just the right amount of support and guidance to help kids stretch their abilities and learn new things.
Exactly. And that support can come from teachers, peers, or even technology.
This is where collaborative learning, peer tutoring, and even online learning platforms come into play.
Precisely. And when we create learning environments that encourage interaction and collaboration, we're not just fostering cognitive development. We're also helping kids develop those essential social skills that are crucial for success in life.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground when it comes to understanding how children learn.
Yes, we have.
But what about the challenges and vulnerabilities that many kids face? Our sources didn't shy away from the darker realities of childhood.
You're right. While we want to create supportive environments for all children, it's important to acknowledge that not every child's journey is easy or carefree.
Right.
We need to address those systemic issues that perpetuate inequalities and create barriers to success for too many kids.
We're talking about poverty, discrimination, lack of access to quality education and healthcare.
Yes.
All those factors that can stack the deck against a child from the very beginning. The research painted a pretty stark picture of the challenges these kids face.
It did. We saw the story of Sakshi and Sonal, two 10-year-old girls whose lives are worlds apart due to the vast difference in their socioeconomic circumstances. And we learned about Rampukar, the 13-year-old boy who can't attend school because he has to work to support his family.
Their stories are heartbreaking reminders that childhood isn't a level playing field.
No, it's not.
So what can we do? How do we address these systemic issues that are so much bigger than any one individual?
Well, it starts with awareness.
Okay.
We need to understand the root causes of these inequalities and advocate for policies and programs that create a more just and equitable society for all children.
Things like early childhood intervention programs, affordable housing access to quality health care, and ensuring that every child has a chance to get a good education regardless of their zip code.
Exactly. And it's not just about government programs.
Right.
It's about creating communities where everyone feels valued, supported, and connected.
Yeah.
It's about building a safety net that catches those who fall through the cracks.
But it can feel overwhelming, like what can one person really do to make a difference in the face of such huge problems?
That's a valid feeling. But even small acts of kindness and compassion can have a ripple effect.
Okay.
You can volunteer at a local school, donate to a charity that supports children in need. Or simply be a positive and supportive presence in the life of a child who's facing challenges.
That's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a better world for children.
We do. And when we come together as a community with a shared commitment to the well-being of all children, we can make a real difference.
So we've talked about how play can be a powerful tool for learning and development, but how do we actually bring more play into the classroom? I mean, we still need to cover the curriculum, right?
You're right. It's all about balance. But the good news is that play doesn't have to be separate from academics. It can actually be integrated into our lessons and activities.
Give me some examples. How can we make learning more playful?
Well, think about using games to teach math concepts, or having students create skits to demonstrate their understanding of history. You could even use building blocks to explore scientific principles. The possibilities are endless.
That's amazing. It's about finding those creative ways to make learning fun and engaging. I bet kids would be much more motivated to learn if they felt like they were playing.
Exactly. And when kids are engaged and motivated, learning becomes so much more effective. It's not about throwing out the textbooks and turning the classroom into a free-for-all. It's about finding ways to make learning more joyful and playful.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It makes me realize that we need to rethink some of our traditional assumptions about education and embrace the power of play.
I agree. We need to create a learning environment where children feel safe to explore, experiment, and let their imaginations run wild. A place where they can learn not just through textbooks and lectures, but through hands-on activities, creative expression, and, yes, even play.
I love that vision. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of childhood, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that childhood is far more complex and nuanced than we often realize, it's a journey shaped by a multitude of factors: biology, relationships, culture, experiences, and even our own perceptions as adults.
It's about recognizing that every child is unique with their own strengths, challenges, and ways of seeing the world, and that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to raising or educating them.
Exactly, and I think another important takeaway is that we all have a role to play in creating a world where children can thrive, whether we're parents, educators, or simply concerned citizens. We can all make a difference in the lives of children.
It's about advocating for policies that support children's well-being, creating supportive and inclusive environments, and simply being present and attentive to the children in our lives.
Beautifully said. And I would add that it's about embracing a sense of wonder and curiosity about the world of childhood. The more we learn about how children think, feel, and experience the world, the better equipped we'll be to support their growth and development.
This deep dive has certainly sparked a lot of new thoughts and ideas for me. I feel inspired to look at the children in my life with fresh eyes and a deeper understanding of their unique journeys.
I think that's the best outcome we could hope for. This exploration of childhood isn't meant to be the final word, but rather a starting point for ongoing reflection, learning, and action.
So to our listener out there, we encourage you to continue exploring the world of childhood, to challenge your assumptions, and to find ways to make a positive difference in the lives of children.
And remember, the most valuable insights often come from simply observing, listening, and engaging with children themselves. They have so much to teach us if we're willing to learn.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as enriching and insightful as we have.